The sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is already aiming to shatter what we think we know about the original game and the Zelda series as a whole. There are many things to think about, but we keep coming back to Ganondorf, the Hand, and his fate. It is this predicament that has given us clues that will answer all of the questions we have about Ganon's seal, the identity of the Hand, some unsolved mysteries that relate to past games, and will finally solve the timeline debate for Breath of the Wild along with the sequel. What is wildly striking about this hand is the color of the energy swirling around the hand and the design of the hand itself. It has a particular theme of golden glyphs that surround the arm, and with its color scheme, it's very apparent that this hand runs on spirit magic, as we've seen previously in Breath of the Wild and other Zelda games. However, I believe that the concept of spirit magic is much more deeper than what any of us truly expected and could reveal the identity of this arm. This, ladies and gentlemen, could tie it all together. What's up guys, it's HMK once again with another Breath of the Wild theory video. This is a big one that you have all been waiting for when it comes to the original Breath of the Wild and Breath of the Wild 2. And I have a great friend with me along for the ride. Zeltik is going to help bring all of this together and finally break down what you think you know about Breath of the Wild, the past games, going into the sequel. For the safety of hype, I'm going to ask you to strap on in. This is going to be wild. Breath of the Wild. First off, notice the spires around Ganondorf's corpse. They're all pointing at the corpse and the seal upon it. We've seen these spires before in the Zelda series. They are the rock formations that are present at all of the spirit springs in Twilight Princess throughout Hyrule, giving us a connection to the light spirits dispatched by the goddesses in order to stop and seal away the dark interlopers within the Twilight Realm. The people that will go on to become the Twilight tribe, along with sealing away their source of their powerful magic, the fused shadow.
With this knowledge, it could be possible that this could be using something similar to, or even the very same, sacred power that the light spirits used in order to seal away the interlopers and the fused shadow. But it goes much deeper than that. Let's look back at the hand. Something that you can take away from its design instantly are the golden ornaments all over the arm. Have we seen this before? This golden arm, did it belong to the hero that faced the calamity Ganon? He who wielded the Master Sword, now known as the sword that seals the darkness in the tapestry telling the tale of 10,000 years before Breath of the Wild. This could indeed be the same hand as in the design for this particular hero, only his hand is golden. What's more is that this is his sword-wielding hand, the right hand, that echoes the appearance of this mysterious entity keeping Ganondorf sealed. It's also important that this is the hand wielding the Master Sword, as history seems to be ready to repeat itself as Link absorbs this energy into his own sword-wielding hand, and he's now the current owner of the Master Sword.
This tells us that history will indeed repeat itself like it always has down the Zelda series, but more so that this golden hand, the hand sealing Ganondorf, this power was owned and used by the previous hero in conjunction with the Master Sword to combat the calamity Ganon. This act is what answers a lingering question in the Zelda series introduced in Breath of the Wild. This event is how the Master Sword gained its new title, the Sword that Seals the Darkness. The Master Sword was given this new name in Breath of the Wild when in the past it was famously known as the Blade of Evil's Bane, the evil destroying sword that the wicked can never touch. But this is the event when the sword gained its new title as the Sword that Seals the Darkness, notably because of this sealing power. This hand that is clutching the remains of Ganondorf is the same hand, the same power that was once used with the Master Sword those 10,000 years ago. It was the combination of this golden hand's sealing magic with the Master Sword that many have witnessed in the war against the calamity Ganon that the Master Sword was christened at that point as the Sword that Seals the Darkness, a previously unknown occurrence that has now come to light with this association.
So Link could be absorbing that energy into his own hand to recreate the legend. When only one of the Master Sword and this power are used, they cannot truly defeat or seal away Ganon's malice. But what's the source of this sealing magic? Well, the energy, as previously mentioned, is not only familiar in colour but in design. The magic looks like it's the equivalent to spirit magic, the green-blue flames of those that have either passed on or are now in spirit form. This was used extensively in Breath of the Wild, but also in another game.
Twilight Princess. Spirits were heavily featured in this game, where twilight blankets the areas of Hyrule. The people within became spirits, but this connection goes farther than that. The motif of nearly everything related to the Twilight deals with the same greenish color, their energy, their architecture, and even the bodies of the Twilight, as they are an evolved tribe from those known as the Dark Interlopers from long ago. Wouldn't it be argued that this theme was integrated into their existence as part of that evolution? The reason why I bring this up is I believe since the phenomenon of Twilight turns people from the light world into spirits, that they have to be connected, Twilight magic and spirit magic.
The light spirits are the ones that banished the interlopers into the Twilight realm. Could it be possible that within this realm, the Twilight were able to utilize and harness spirit energy? This would explain the similarities in design and color between spirit energy and certain Twilight magic. That the phenomenon where light world dwellers become lost spirits in Twilight is reversed for the Twilight, as they're able to freely live and thrive in Twilight. This could be why they're marked with the striking blue-green on their body, as it's what allows them to remain within Twilight.
And it is this connection between spirit and Twilight that will solve the mysteries of the sequel to Breath of the Wild. The hand that is keeping Ganondorf sealed. Its power must be something that is strong enough to keep it at bay. But who is it? Rather, what is it? Thanks to its design and the connections we've established, the hand, the magic that is sealing Ganondorf, is the power of a soul from the Twilight Realm. The power that was eventually given to the Master Sword. All of the similarities are there. The golden designs match up with the symbolism and shapes of the soul. The colors coordinate with the theme of spirit and Twilight magic, and the fact that the soul apparently contains power equivalent to that of the sun from the light world. It would have the force needed to keep the remains of Ganondorf sealed. And this seal on a dead Ganondorf was even foreshadowed in Twilight Princess. As if this hand is indeed born of the magic of a soul, it would harken back to the battle between Link and Ganondorf at the end of Twilight Princess. While the Master Sword would glow perpetually in the Twilight Realm, it does not in the Light World, aside from chancing against Ganondorf in the final battle of the game. When clashing swords with Ganondorf, the power of souls activates within the Master Sword. And it is this power that many would argue was enough to enhance the Master Sword to defeat Ganondorf without any other aid. Furthermore, it would explain exactly why the Master Sword doubles in strength and glows with holy power when around malice. That is because the power of the soul is awakening like it did in Twilight Princess when chancing against Ganondorf. It is the same thing.
These connections would mean that this Ganondorf we see in the sequel to Breath of the Wild is indeed the same Ganondorf from Twilight Princess, and that the hand powered by a soul is sealing the same wound on Ganondorf's chest that he suffered from the events of that game, pouring forth malice. This hand, powered by the same sacred energy of the soul, is keeping Ganondorf from resurrecting, but it isn't enough to keep the malice from spreading out of the wound. What's more is that the battle between Ganondorf and Link at the end of Twilight Princess is now incredibly important, because it was this decisive battle that formed the model used for generations after on how the princess and the hero should fight evil. Zelda used the power of the goddess's light spirits, taking the form of the Bow of Light and the light arrows, the sacred power of those with the blood of the goddess, and Link used the Master Sword powered with the magic of souls from the Twilight. It was this battle that was recorded into the annals of history, as Link, Zelda, Midna and the Light Spirits were in full audience of the outcome, and it was due to knowledge of this battle that the hero and the princess knew what had to be done to defeat Calamity Ganon, as told in the tapestry of 10,000 years ago.
It all comes together. With this information coming to light, we can now say that Breath of the Wild, along with its sequel, takes place in the child timeline. However, there is a note of the reincarnated Ganondorf, who was a part of the backstory for Four Swords Adventures. This would pose a problem to the idea of the games taking place in the child timeline. In a previous theory, I combated this notion with the concept of how malice functions after a defeat or a death of Ganon. The Ganondorf, and in extension, the Ganon we saw in Four Swords Adventures, was something of a fake, a being that was Ganon in name only. In a previous theory, I state by being the only Ganon singled out in Zelda Encyclopedia in all timelines that wasn't a revival, rather a reincarnation, that this is the only version throughout the entirety of The Legend of Zelda that this Ganon wasn't a true re-manifestation of Demise's curse and Ganon's malice, that he only assumed the form of Ganon from Ganondorf through the power of the Trident, which carried the power to do so. That the malice would take the form of Shadow Link instead of taking the form of Ganon in that game, in which it is stated in various texts that the Dark Mirror was only used to replicate the Shadow Links into greater numbers, not the true source of creation. For more details, click the link in the description box. With that in mind, we can stake the claim that these remains of Ganondorfs are one and the same of the villain that we've slain in Twilight Princess. But if that's the case, why has Hyrule been haunted by his presence through malice since his defeat in the form of the Calamity? It is because his true defeat was incomplete. While seemingly dead in Twilight Princess without the Triforce of Power to aid him, Ganondorf still needed to be sealed in order to avert disaster, because though he is dead, he is still the source. And while we see the hand is indeed keeping him at bay, it was only temporary and did not stop the malice from flowing out of his remains. The power of the soul within the Master Sword was enough to kill Ganondorf, but not enough to stop his hatred. The seal was incomplete,
as some poor soul had the foolish idea to remove the Master Sword from Ganondorf's body to return it to its pedestal within the Sacred Grove, as we see at the end of Twilight Princess. Ganondorf's corpse was most likely taken by the royal family and given an enemy's burial somewhere, until it was discovered at some point in history that his remains were the source of malice that would plague Hyrule. This would lead to a problem. The Master Sword was the key to keeping the malice sealed and keeping Ganondorf down. We've seen this fact in the adult timeline where Link defeated and killed Ganondorf and left the sword within his skull, thus silencing the evil king forever in that timeline. Without the Master Sword, the malice would continue to pour out from Ganondorf. The problem is that only he who is the spirit of the hero is capable of claiming the Master Sword from its pedestal. No one else can pull the sword for use, meaning that in the vast spaces of time where a hero would not reveal himself to claim the Master Sword, the royal family inadvertently were the cause of an endless cycle of doom through Ganondorf's corpse in the child timeline.
They could never admit to this and would undoubtedly cause insurrection against the royal family that could possibly lead to civil war due to a removal of faith and trust towards their deeds, along with a blatant misuse of the Master Sword. The only option they could find was to plead to the Light Spirits and bury Ganondorf's corpse far, far, far below the ground to cover up their shame. It was part of this plan that led the family to attempt to utilize the power of the soul and the Light Spirit's sealing magic to keep Ganondorf's malice from spreading. This outcome is what allows us to come to the realization that the power of the soul from the Twilight Realm, the Twilight magic of the realm itself, spirit magic, is all one and the same that comes from the Light Spirits. as the light spirits are the ones who were sent by the golden goddesses to seal the dark interlopers within the Twilight Realm. They are also the ones that provided them with a home, with new magic to sustain themselves after the fused shadow was sealed. The light spirits were the source of all of that, and are the ones who provided the Twilight with souls. As agents of those that created and governed the world, it is plain as day to see that the magic that sustains the Twilight, the spirits, and the seals all come from the same place, from the same creators. That is why the spires within the Spirit Springs glow with the same glow as the Twilight theme and the Twilight themselves. After all, they are light spirits.
It is the power of light, the power equivalent to the sun, the power of souls, the power provided by the light spirits and by extension the goddesses themselves, that's keeping Ganondorf's remains at bay. But without the Master Sword as the final component, the malice continues to spread and contaminate the land, including the Shadow Links and Calamities that acted as the scourges of Hyrule. While the Master Sword could only channel this specific power when in the face of the calamity and malice, it's possible that during these times the sword is drawing power directly from the soul seal on Ganondorf below the earth. And when completing the trial of the sword, to fully unlock the sword's true power, derived from the souls absorbed into the sword from the events of Twilight Princess. This is the reason why the seal on Ganondorf's remains begins to weaken and sets the events of the sequel to Breath of the Wild in motion, as that's why it was a trial of the sword. It was the sword's final test for Link to see if he was ready to finally end Ganondorf once and for all.
Spirit magic. To pull the power back from the seal into the Master Sword as a signal that its current wielder was ready to end the evil king so that the seal can be unleashed. As stated in a previous theory, the Sheikah's final trial was to get Link ready for the final battle against Ganondorf in terms of combat and preparation, and the sword's final trial was to make sure Link was ready for the tools needed to face this threat, and would both complete the gates will be opened up to the Lion's Den, that is the confrontation with Ganondorf in the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel, as shown and proven with the events of Twilight Princess. While defeated, all Ganondorf needs to grow strong again from a weakened state was hatred that bleeds across the void. It worked for him through the unrest of the Twilight, and this is what will work again for him through his own hatred and malice that has grown exponentially from himself as the source over the years. That is what will allow him to grow strong and whole once again. With Link absorbing the soul's power into himself from the seal's hand, and to use that in conjunction with the Master Sword, the true way of defeating Ganondorf as foretold in Twilight Princess and from the events 10,000 years prior, again will finally be repeated in the true form, and this clash may lead to the end of the calamity within the child timeline. This seal, this magic, has answered so many questions regarding Breath of the Wild, the sequel, and others within the Zelda timeline. The last remaining question is that will this plan work again? I hope you guys enjoyed this huge theory between myself and Zeltik. If you did, be sure to like, share, favorite, and most importantly, subscribe to HMK as I post Zelda content every week. Also, subscribe to my brother Zeltik as he posts awesome Zelda content and theories. You won't regret it. Once again, big thanks to my Patreon supporters for help making this video happen. If you want to find out how you can support HMK for just $1 a month, please check out my Patreon page. Alright guys, so until the next huge Breath of the Wild 2 video, this has been HMK and Zeltik, and we will check you guys later.